Whether the court frames Mr. Carlson's statements as exaggeration, non-literal commentary, or simply bloviating for his audience, the conclusion remains the same. The statements are non-actionable. I can't sue Tucker Carlson for the same reason I can't sue a clown in this country. I want to discuss a recent significant lawsuit that Fox News won against a Playboy model. The suit is Karen McDougal versus Fox News. Did not get reported on much, and you will not hear it discussed on YouTube, but that makes it even more crucial that you hear about this story, because this lawsuit reveals the truth about cable news. 2 years ago, Tucker Carlson on Fox News called Karen McDougal an extortionist.
Now that sounds like a classic case of extortion.
Karen McDougal caught this episode and thought, well, that was mean, but more importantly, that's not true. In fact, that's defamation. I think it's defamation. I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm going to sue Tucker Carlson and Fox News. They're a news show. Why aren't they telling the truth? So she takes it to court. And how Fox News defends Tucker Carlson and what they argue is a game changer.
Everything he says is true. Why is what Cohen is alleging a criminal offense? Remember the facts of the story. These are undisputed. 2 women approached Donald Trump and threatened to ruin his career and humiliate his family if he doesn't give them money. Now that sounds like a classic case of extortion.
You see, having worked in broadcast journalism, I can tell you most Americans trust cable news. They might think it's biased, but given the aesthetic and the authority at which the information is coming at them, the graphics, the sports coats, CNN, Fox News, yeah, it's biased, but I can trust what they're saying. But this court case reveals cable news is all fake. Fox News admits it's a game. This case shows us something that politicians always knew that average Americans didn't.
But if you turn on cable news, they're killing each other.
Exactly.
I don't think that the cable news industry is helping the American people come together, but that's not their job. They're selling entertainment.
And if you see somebody fighting on Fox or CNN or MSNBC, it's more entertaining.
It's a juicy case. Let's get into it. McDougal hears Tucker Carlson call her an extortionist, and she sues Fox News and Tucker Carlson. And the first move is Fox News tries to get the case dismissed. They say Fox News moves to dismiss the claim on the grounds that Mr. Carlson's statements were not statements of fact. And McDougal's lawyers fire back, saying the plaintiff submits that Mr. Carlson's statements were facts, as indicated by his statement, quote, "Remember the facts of the story. These are undisputed."
Remember the facts of the story. These are undisputed. 2 women approached Donald Trump.
So McDougal's lawyers are saying, what do you mean they're not facts? He was on television and he said to the camera, "Remember the facts of the story. These are, quote, undisputed." Now we hear from the court itself. And they say the question of whether the statements at issue are statements of fact is a legal one, informed by factual context of the statements in question. It is also clear that the determination of whether a statement is opinion or rhetorical hyperbole, as opposed to factual representation, is a question of law for the court. So the court is saying, yeah, this is a legitimate case that we should decide. It is the prerogative of the court, the judicial system in the United States, to decide what is real factual news and what isn't. What is rhetorical hyperbole or opinion? Whether McDougal does have a point that if Tucker Carlson calls her an extortionist and it's not true, and he purports to be on a news show, and it's sold as a news show, isn't that defamation? Fox News moves to dismiss again, but this time they admit publicly they're not actually news to help their argument. Mr. Carlson's statements of his show are opinion commentary on matters of public importance and are not reasonably understood as being factual. Fox News does not contest that Mr. Carlson's statements were about Karen McDougal. They were definitely about her. And Fox News does not challenge the plaintiff's defamation per se theory. They're saying, we understand you may feel hurt and that the extortionist claim isn't true. Nonetheless, Fox News first argues that viewed in context, Mr. Carlson cannot be understood to have been stating facts, but instead he was delivering an opinion using hyperbole for effect. It's an interesting argument by Fox News here. Listen, the judge in court, we're telling you Tucker Carlson wasn't stating facts. That's not what he does. And Fox News continues their argument. Such statements are just one type of the, quote, rhetorical hyperbole normally associated with politics and public discourse in the United States. This is especially true in the context of commentary talk shows like the one at issue here, which often use, quote, increasingly barbed language to address issues in the news. And here's where it gets both juicy and important. After deliberating a while, the court buys Fox's argument. They agree with Fox News that it's not real, it was never intended to be real, and that no learned American would ever or should ever think Fox News is real. Essentially, the court decides Fox is fake. The court finds that Mr. Carlson's invocation of extortion against Ms. McDougal is non-actionable hyperbole. This general tenor, the court says, of the show should then inform a viewer that he is not stating, quote, actual facts about the topics he discusses, and is instead engaging in, quote, exaggeration and, quote, non-literal commentary. Whether the court frames Mr. Carlson's statements as exaggeration, non-literal commentary, or simply bloviating for his audience, the conclusion remains the same. The statements are non-actionable. Think about what the court is saying there for a minute. It's saying, I can't sue Tucker Carlson for the same reason I can't sue a clown in this country. Clown gets on stage and tells tall tales for the circus. That is an integral part of its job. And therefore, I cannot sue a clown for being inaccurate because nobody presumes that the clown was accurate to begin with. Tucker Carlson is a clown in the eyes of the law. To believe Tucker Carlson is to believe a clown. And since nobody believes clowns, there cannot be defamation. That's what the court is saying. Tucker Carlson, Fox News, it's rhetorical hyperbole. Bloviating, exaggeration, commentary. Doesn't matter how the court defines it. The court is simply saying it's nonsense. And because it's nonsense, there's no defamation. But the court does continue. It is true that Mr. Carlson added color to his unsubstantiated rhetorical claim of extortion when he narrated that Ms. McDougal approached Mr. Trump and threatened his career and family. But this overheated rhetoric is precisely the kind of pitched commentary that one expects when tuning into talk shows like Tucker Carlson Tonight, with pundits debating the latest political controversies. We admit that Tucker Carlson gave a very captivating narrative arc to McDougal talking Mr. Trump and perhaps extorting him, and that it, in all cases, likely seems like a real story and is presented as a real story. But that is precisely the type of trickery we would anticipate from a talk show like Tucker Carlson. As a result, the court concludes that Mr. Carlson's statements, viewed in context, are not factual representations. For this reason, motion to dismiss on this ground are granted. So after reading this, we can conclude definitively a few things. Tucker Carlson Tonight is no more a news show than Dr. Oz is a medical show. And the parallels here are extremely useful because both shows trade on the prior white-collar occupations of their hosts to sell the verisimilitude of the show. Like, once Dr. Oz was a real doctor. He practiced real medicine at a hospital. The show has a real doctor, but the show does not practice medicine. It's missing that fourth component. Nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice or with a shred of scientific evidence. Gets on there and starts talking about homeopathy for cancer, and you know the show's gone off the rails and onto the road of science fiction. It's just driving all over the place.
This is what homeopathy is all about.
I think I and we as Americans are pretty good at discerning that. We're pretty good in not taking Dr. Oz or Dr. Phil or Oprah seriously. But I and we collectively are less good at applying that exact same critique when it comes to news, reporters, and television. Tucker Carlson is a real journalist. Tucker Carlson practiced reporting real papers around the world. The show Tucker Carlson Tonight has a real journalist, but Tucker Carlson does not practice reporting on his show. Nothing Tucker Carlson says should be interpreted as factually accurate or with a shred of journalistic integrity. This is not me singling out Fox News. If you want to sit there and be a liberal and go, oh, haha, Fox News is fake, the same thing applies to MSNBC. They're all the same. I'm not singling out Fox News here. Fox News just happened to be involved in the lawsuit that explicitly revealed the mechanical operations of news shows. And why should we watch it that way? One, because that's the correct way to view it, and Fox News admits it. But two, our judicial system is telling us that's how they view it. They view it as rhetorical hyperbole, not news. The court is saying, frankly, CNN, Fox, NBC, if you want to sell your programming as news in the pharmacy of information along with the New York Times and the Daily Caller, your bottle should come with the not FDA approved label that these claims are totally unverified, and that we as consumers should be very clear-eyed. Watching cable news is like taking that supplement cut with tub cleaner and vitamin C that claims to cure aging. We can take it, we can swallow the whole bottle of Fox News or CNN, but placebo has all the power in that purchase.
I'm not sure I knew that some of that was just some people's shtick.
It's up to us to be smart enough to know, that we are watching entertainment. And if you want to see a different view, then read a different publication just for kicks.
Lastly, this court decision makes me want to talk about maps. A picture of a two-dimensional globe, an image we use to navigate terrain. A map is a physical representation of the world around us, and a good map makes precise details about the terrain, like what types of trees or towns we'll see when we go for a drive. But what if we couldn't trust the map? What if the map showed California much larger than it was, and Texas a lot tinier? How many people does it take to believe the map is reality? For the map to become reality, there's a tipping point there. I remember driving from Kansas City down to Dallas with my friend Shannon, and we were using Apple Maps for the first part of the trip. Apple had just released their competitive app to Google, and so whenever you would search directions on the iPhone, it was pulling up Apple Maps. And in her blue 1996 Honda Civic with the bent door in the back, we took I-69 and then caught a freeway and then on to the next highway. And we were discussing the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. I said the cat was dead, she said it was alive, and we debated back and forth for a long time until we drove past Carson City, which is a town not only not in Oklahoma, but in far western Kansas. And I remember Shannon said to me at the time, "Alec, Apple Maps fucked us." We trusted the map. We trusted it as a guide to the physical world around us, and it misled us. We had to drive 4 hours just to course correct. Maps have power, and news is a verbal map to the physical world around us. Quality news is a precise guide to navigating the terrain of the human world. News is just a rhetorical map, not a physical map. This is why good journalism is so important. We need a precise understanding of what's going on in the world around us. Because when we don't, we make wrong decisions. But herein lies an exploitable angle. If I want to control people's movement and their decisions, I can hire a cartographer to distort the geographical boundaries in my kingdom. I can make my armies look a little bigger, make my resources look vaster. But I can also hire truth tellers, trusted journalists to distort the rhetorical reality a little bit. Each has their uses. Journalists have great power to make maps of meaning that we use to navigate the world. After all, it's through news that we perceive the world around us. Optimistic, pessimistic, hopeful, dour. Is the economy strong? Should I be worried about my health? What's going on across the ocean? All this information guides us in who we are as people and what decisions we want to make in our future. And television, Fox, CNN, NBC are all kings and kingdoms who hired good journalists to construct distorted rhetorical realities that make us feel better. But they're not accurate. And how do we know they're not accurate? Because the court system just told us those maps are bullshit. Those maps are funhouse maps. They're designed to make us feel better, to make us outraged, but they're not designed to be accurate. These shows don't render maps of the world that represent reality. They render maps that make them money, and we should be careful with that. The case is stunning, because Fox News publicly admits for once it's fake. and has no obligation to tell the truth. The largest news network in the United States is telling its audience it's not real, and anybody that believes it are fools. That's why I think this case is so important, because it answers a question millions of us have in America, which is cable news real or not? And the answer is a resounding no.
It doesn't seem to make any sense. Oh.
Anyway, that's the video. If you're curious to read the entire Fox News versus McDougal court case, you can read it down below. If you enjoyed this video, maybe consider watching another one right here, or subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.